Have you ever been scrolling online and wondered how on earth ancient religious texts are not just surviving, but actually going viral? Well, it's not an accident. It turns out there's a blueprint, and we're about to break it all down. So, first things first, let's set the stage and look at the core challenge here, right? We're pitting these incredibly old scriptures against the lightning fast world of today's internet. I mean, that's really the big question, isn't it? How does a book that's literally 2,000 years old even stand a chance against something like TikTok? It sounds kind of impossible, but it's happening. And the way it's happening is surprisingly strategic. And this right here, this really gets to the heart of the problem. You've got ancient texts on one hand that are complex, they're dense, and they demand you to slow down and really study them. But on the other hand, modern content, well, it has to be simple, practical, and super fast. There's this huge gap, and the smartest content creators have figured out a systematic way to bridge it. So, how exactly are they bridging that gap? Well, that brings us right into section 2, where we're going to pull back the curtain on the solution. The specific blueprint that's designed to make ancient wisdom feel totally modern and, well, useful. They call it the Scriptural Strategy. And here's the thing. This isn't about dumbing down the content. Not at all. It's about reframing it. It's a system for turning these ancient, sometimes confusing stories into practical, memorable frameworks that a modern audience can actually grab onto. Okay, so the whole strategy basically rests on 3 core pillars. First, you systematize knowledge. You turn stories into clear, step-by-step processes. Second, you create pattern interrupts. You use these unexpected questions that just totally reset people's attention. And third, and this part is crucial, you provide a tangible deliverable. You give the viewers something they can walk away with and use immediately. Let's see how this actually works.
All right, this is where it gets really fun. We're going to deconstruct 2 different case studies right from the blueprint so you can see exactly how these tactics all click together to make content that you just can't look away from.
So first up, we've got this really strange story from the Book of Numbers. You have the ancient Israelites. They've been wandering in the desert for decades, and suddenly they're getting bitten by these deadly snakes. So Moses asks God for help, and the solution is, well, it's weird. God tells him to forge a bronze snake, stick it on a pole, and anyone who just looks at it will be healed. Now, just hold that thought for a second, because, wait a minute, hold on, stop. Did you catch what just happened? That little pause, that break in the story, that was a pattern interrupt. It's a technique that's designed to break the flow and signal to you, the viewer, that we're about to go deeper. See, by asking a question that goes against the grain, like this one, the creator instantly shifts gears. We're not just telling a story anymore. We're solving a puzzle. It reframes the whole narrative, not as some random ancient event, but as a case study. It promises a hidden insight. And that, right there, is what gets you hooked. Okay, so that's how a pattern interrupt creates a hook. Now, for our second case study, let's look at how to systematize a story. This one is all about the Apostle Peter. He's at his absolute lowest point, right? He denies even knowing Jesus 3 times while he's warming his hands by a charcoal fire. It is a moment of total failure. But after the resurrection, Jesus sets up this very specific, incredibly powerful reunion. Now, check this out, because this is where the strategy is just brilliant. The blueprint breaks the story down, systematizes it, by isolating these unbelievable parallels in the narrative. Look at the setting, a charcoal fire. That's only mentioned twice in the entire New Testament, and boom, both times it's with Peter at these make-or-break moments. The creator uses this as a sensory anchor. You can almost smell the smoke, connecting Peter's trauma to his healing. Then you have the 3 denials, which are perfectly mirrored by 3 questions of love, turning his deepest shame into a brand new mission. And this is the final piece of the puzzle, the tangible deliverable. The story isn't just a story anymore. It's now a practical 3-step guide called the memory audit. The audience is handed an actionable template to apply the exact same logic to their own lives. It transforms you from just a passive viewer into an active participant. It's pretty powerful stuff. So what's the big picture here? What does all this mean? In our final section, we're going to zoom out and see how these techniques aren't just for religious texts. They're actually universal principles of communication that can be used for almost any complex subject you can think of. So look, here's the bottom line. The Scriptural Strategy is basically a masterclass in how to communicate difficult ideas. And these principles, they work everywhere. Just imagine a history teacher explaining the fall of Rome. Instead of just a list of dates, what if they framed it as a 3-step imperial autopsy? That's a system. Or think about a scientist trying to explain string theory. They could use a pattern interrupt, but what if everything we see is just vibrating? To get you hooked before they dive into the math. It's all about using these tools, sensory anchors, clear deliverables, and reframing failure not as the end, but as the setup for a comeback.
And all of that leaves us with one final big question. If this blueprint can make 2,000-year-old texts feel urgent and relevant today, what other complex ideas could it unlock? From dense philosophy to the mind-bending realities of quantum physics. Maybe the most difficult ideas out there aren't actually inaccessible. Maybe they're just waiting for the right framework. Because in the end, it's not just about what you say, it's all about how you frame it.